I've had a personal relationship with New Orleans for more than a decade. I made my first visit here in 2011, and in 2013 I moved to the South for work reasons. I never lived in New Orleans, but New Orleans was always just a short drive away, and I found myself regularly hanging out in the French Quarter, in Bywater, in Marinay, in City Park, or streetcarring uptown to the beautiful Garden District. Like any city, New Orleans has parts that aren't so pretty, but for my money, at least, it remains my favorite of any American city I've ever visited. And I remember well all the record stores that I used to shop at in New Orleans when I lived down there. And so last week I stopped in at two of them, and in this video I'll show you the Elton records that I found there. Oh, I remember this guy. He'd serenade people as they left the streetcar at this intersection. So this is footage from last week. I'm standing in a scenic little park at the intersection of Royal and Piety Streets. I'm actually just waiting for Euclid Records to open here and just kind of wandering around. Several years ago, while flying from Dallas to Biloxi, I looked out my window and I saw this. It's really the only time I ever saw New Orleans so clearly from a plane. And you can see why they call it the Crescent City. Anyway, to give you some idea of where Euclid Records is on the map, it's over here. 2 districts downriver from the French Quarter in the Bywater district on the corner of Piety and Charter Streets. I wanted to show you this intersection back here. This is Royal and Desire Streets, and as I understand the story, once upon a time the city's streetcars used to reach this far downriver, and the Desire streetcar, or the streetcar named Desire as Tennessee Williams called it, used to come down here, stop at Desire, go all the way down to France Street, then return to the city's downtown, upriver, via Royal Street. And Desire Street was actually where Euclid Records originally opened its New Orleans location in 2010. Its first building was the small pink building on the corner of Charters and Desire, but in 2014 it moved to this larger 2-story building on the corner of Charters and Piety, which dates to the 1930s, but I know little about its history before Euclid Records opened there. And Euclid certainly doesn't need anyone's YouTube channel to get attention. In one of his Analog Planet columns, Michael Fremer wrote glowingly of his visit to Euclid in 2012, and in 2018, Amanda Wicks of Vinyl Me Please declared Euclid Records the best record store in Louisiana. Over the years, I made many a memorable purchase here, but strangely enough, I never bought any Elton records. And in the years after moving back to Canada, I'd think about Euclid Records and what a missed opportunity it had been for me, because for most artists, Euclid always had its main vinyl bins in which they'd place new sealed copies of albums, but in crates directly below the main bins, they'd place used and vintage copies. And for Elton John, they always had a lot of used and vintage stuff, mostly American pressings, but lots of them. And I never bothered to look through them. So for a long time now, I've dreamt of going back to Euclid and pawing through those bins to see what I find. Anyway, this is the main floor. There's an upstairs too, which you'll see in a little while. And here's the Elton John section. I love how the divider calls him Sir Elton John, you bet. And the first thing I found looking through the main Elton vinyl bin here was this copy of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which I knew straight away wasn't a 2014 copy, but I also knew it wasn't a vintage copy either. I wasn't sure what it was, so I set it aside for further inspection. Otherwise, this section here was all new vinyl, mostly reissues from the last 10 years. I then turned my attention to the used and vintage copies down below, and at first, I assumed that the bin on the right was the only bin that contained used and vintage Elton John stuff, but I was wrong. Okay guys, this is why I came. So I thought this was the only Elton overflow bin. This is all Elton right here. All Elton. Overflow. Hello mama. That's why I came to this store. I am going to be here for a while. Alright, so just explaining what we're seeing here. That's a stock copy of Ice on Fire. OG. I assume Black Label Geffen. It was $9. I didn't get it though because I already have a stock copy at home, American stock copy. It sounds great. That next one there, that is actually a Columbia House copy, lacquer cut by, electroplated by, and pressed by CBS Carrollton. And I'll talk about that a little later in this video because I actually did get that. It was a great find, and you know, there's a reason why I collect those club copies. I'll explain that a little bit later. You can see here I'm making some piles. That's the keep pile, and then I have the maybe pile there. That was a Pinckneyville pressing of 21 at 33. Great price on that. I didn't get it. I already have a Pinckneyville pressing. That, in its original strength, was a Gloversville pressing, which I didn't have. Got that. Didn't get that. Didn't need it. That's a Europa disc pressing of the Fox. Already had one of those. A couple copies of Red Strikes back here. One was a club copy that was actually pressed in Canada. Didn't need that. Already had it. The other one was a Gloversville, American Gloversville pressing. That is a Pinckneyville Yellow Swirl Uni Pinckneyville Chateau. That is, well, that's an OG Greatest Hits Volume 2. I'll talk about that one a little bit later. I did get that one. That's a Burning Toppin album. You often find Burning Toppin albums wedged in Elton John sections. That self-titled Elton John back there, by the way, that was a 1973 Black Rainbow. Which I didn't get. That's a 1973 Black Rainbow Madman, which I have been looking for a while. Used to have a Canadian one. That one was actually the disc was in good shape, had the booklet, but the sleeve was a little worse for wear. It was a good price. I put it in my maybe pile, but I ended up not getting it. That is a Yellow Swirl Uni, American press. That is Don't Shoot Me, obviously. I just can't remember what that was. I think that was a Gloversville press. This was a Pinckneyville. Both were 1973 Black Rainbows, not the original, just straight black labels. 211 1770s. I got one of them. I can't remember which one. Here we have 4 copies of the Friends soundtrack. And I got a few of those, actually, I got to admit. A few copies of Jump Up here. One was a Columbia House copy done at CBS Terre Haute, and I got that. A few copies of A Single Man here, one of which I didn't have, and so I got that one. There are 10 copies of Rock of the Westies here, all American, all MCA pressings, and I got 2 of them. I'm very proud to say, excited to say. I'll tell you about those later in the video. I got 2 of them. As you can see, there was some copies of the self-titled Elton John album. There's some Caribous. Most of them were Pinckneyville, Gloversville. I had those. Another sealed reissue copy of Peachtree Road down the bin. They had one up top there already. So next, upstairs was where Euclid keeps its 45s. This is just me going upstairs here. It's a great building. It's laid out so well. They actually sort the 45s not by artist. In most cases, they're sorted by label, which may sound a little strange to some people. I actually kind of found it useful. There were a couple boxes, though, for 70s and 80s picture sleeve 45s, and those were alphabetical by artist. And so, as you can see, there were some Elton Johns there, a lot of Billy Joels. I think, yeah, a few Philly Freedoms. There's another one. This is the one that caught my eye. I already have, and I checked it when the camera was off. I could tell right away, actually, that was a UK pressing. I have a Dutch rocket pressing and a UK rocket pressing, but my UK rocket looks like it was driven over by a car. So that one was in really good shape, so I put that aside. A few more, American Geffens, another Nobody Wins. Now I'm I'm hoping maybe I'll find a Blue Label Phillips from the UK, maybe a Grail, here. But no, they didn't, there wasn't anything like that. Of course, check the Fontanas too, hoping maybe for a Bluesology, and no, not one in there either. I think I checked. The deck is next. I guess I was hoping for a Bread and Beer Band. and I actually, when I found this, I thought I had the 1969 promo version for a split second there, but then I realized, of course, that's not it. I have the 71 stock copy. Here's the MCA section, and I didn't find anything in here, unfortunately. But in the end, I just got the 145 for $2 or $1.99, not even $2. The prices are so great, and I was very happy to find that. So this was just a small peek at my time at Euclid. I made another trip the following day, and I got some non-Elton stuff here too, but I'll share the non-Elton stuff in another future video. I just want to say a big thank you to Euclid Records for letting me film inside the store. It was very nice of them. The guy at the counter was very helpful and even dug around the back to see if they had any Elton stuff they hadn't yet put out. And he did bring me one item, but it was something that I already had. But I really appreciate the great service. Next, I visited another of my old haunts, the Louisiana Music Factory, which is located at the foot of Frenchman Street, much closer to the quarter, just across the street from the old Federal Mint on Esplanade, which is now the Jazz Museum. I know relatively little about the history of the Music Factory other than its building many decades ago was a furniture store. That's pretty much all I know. But it's a great place full of cool stuff, and in years past I got some of my OG Pet Shop Boys CDs from here. I'd say my greatest find was actually a rare Monkees CD from the late 1980s. I got that here. I didn't request permission to film inside the store. I didn't expect to find too much in there. They tend to have less vinyl than Euclid. And in the end, I only got 2 records there, one Elton and one non-Elton. And you'll see the Elton one very soon. But the gentleman at the counter here was great. Great service, great conversation here, just like at Euclid. I really, really love both these stores, and I look forward to seeing both again someday very soon.